Assalamu alaikum. Brothers and sisters, procrastination often wears the mask of laziness, but beneath it lies something far deeper, a disconnect between what we do and why we do it. When your actions lose their meaning, your energy begins to fade. It's not that you lack the will to move forward, it's that you've forgotten what you're moving toward. The heart cannot find momentum in what feels empty, and so it delays, not out of rebellion, but out of confusion. When you wake up every day without a clear purpose, even the smallest task feels heavy. The mind starts to resist, not because it's weak, but because it doesn't understand the value of what it's being asked to do. Purpose fuels the soul, and when that connection fades, your drive fades with it. Procrastination then becomes a symptom of a deeper hunger, a hunger for meaning, not just movement. We often tell ourselves that we'll start when we feel ready, but readiness comes from alignment, not from emotion. When your purpose is clear, your actions begin to align naturally with it. The hesitation disappears because every step feels significant. You stop fighting to force motivation, and instead, you flow with intention. What once felt like effort becomes a form of devotion. The human heart was not created to chase endless lists or deadlines. It was created to serve something sacred. That's why you can finish 1,000 tasks and still feel empty if they aren't tied to something that truly matters. When your purpose becomes divine, when it's connected to Allah, to growth, to service, procrastination begins to dissolve. The soul cannot delay what it believes in deeply. Clarity turns work into worship. When you understand why something must be done, you begin to give it your whole heart. You stop seeing the task as a burden and start seeing it as an offering. Procrastination thrives in confusion, but dies in conviction. Once you know that what you're doing carries eternal weight, you stop asking when to begin and start asking how to honor it best. Most people fight procrastination by trying to push harder, but pushing without purpose only leads to burnout. You can't will yourself into consistency through guilt. The heart doesn't respond to pressure. It responds to vision. When you reconnect your work, your study, or your goals to a meaningful why, you begin to act with peace instead of panic. You don't force action, you grow into it. Ask yourself not why can't I start, but why does this matter to me? That question alone can awaken the sleeping parts of your soul. When your why becomes clear, energy follows. You stop negotiating with time and start partnering with it. Every effort becomes part of something sacred, a journey toward becoming what you were created to be. So procrastination isn't a flaw to hate, but a signal to interpret. It's the soul's way of saying something inside you has lost direction. It's not about laziness, it's about misalignment. And the cure isn't in more pressure or guilt, but in rediscovering purpose, the kind that lights you from within and makes every small act feel like part of a greater mission. Every moment you delay carries a quiet transaction, a trade between what lasts forever and what only comforts you for a moment. It doesn't always look dangerous. It feels harmless to rest a bit longer, to postpone that act of worship, that goal, that change you know you need. But time never pauses for our excuses. It moves forward, taking with it the opportunity that once had your name on it. The comfort feels light, but the cost is weighty. It's the exchange of eternal impact for fleeting ease. We often think delay buys us peace, but it only rents us distraction. The more we postpone what matters, the more restless we become. Our hearts were not built to live in half obedience or half purpose. The soul knows when it's wasting divine time, and that awareness quietly drains our joy. What feels like relief in the moment becomes regret in the night. You can silence your conscience for a while, but you cannot numb eternity. Temporary comfort is seductive because it feels safe. It promises rest, pleasure, and escape. But what it really does is teach the heart to settle for less. Every time you choose ease over effort, you train your spirit to prefer illusion over truth. Comfort itself is not the enemy. The danger lies in worshiping it. When comfort becomes your compass, you lose sight of your calling. What was meant to be a pause becomes a pattern. There is a difference between rest and delay. Rest refuels purpose. Delay resists it. One restores you, the other robs you. The prophet rested when needed, but never postponed obedience. He understood that moments are sacred, that time is not simply a schedule, but a trust. To delay what matters is to tell your Creator that His gift of time is negotiable, and that mindset slowly dulls the light within. You may think you're waiting for the right moment, but the right moment rarely arrives. It's created by courage. Waiting for clarity can become a disguise for fear. The truth is, every meaningful act of faith feels inconvenient at first. You will never find perfect timing for prayer, charity, or purpose. But when you choose to act now, you choose the eternal over the immediate, the lasting over the fleeting. The soul thrives in movement, not in hesitation. Every delay builds a wall between your potential and your destiny. Each day of avoidance adds another brick, making it harder to see what you were meant to build. The tragedy isn't that time passes. It's that we pass through it unconsciously, giving away sacred moments for nothing more than comfort that fades before it satisfies. When you delay, you're not just pausing a task. You're postponing transformation. The day you decide to act is the day you step into who you were meant to be. Allah doesn't ask for perfection, He asks for presence. He asks for the willingness to value now, because now is all we ever truly have. Eternity begins in the choices we make in this moment, not in some future version of ourselves we keep waiting for. Time is the most valuable currency of faith. You spend it every second, whether you realize it or not. The question is not whether you will trade it. The question is what you will trade it for. You can exchange it for comfort that disappears, or for purpose that echoes in eternity. Every moment delayed is a moment surrendered to what doesn't last, and every act done for the sake of Allah becomes a moment that never dies. Discipline is not about control. It's about love translated into action. When you commit to something greater than yourself, discipline becomes the way you honor that commitment. It's love saying, I will show up even when I don't feel like it. It's the bridge between intention and integrity, between what you say matters and how you actually live. Without discipline, love stays emotional. With discipline, love becomes transformational. We often confuse discipline with rigidity, as if it's the opposite of freedom. But true discipline is what makes freedom possible. It's the structure that protects what you value most. Without it, your desires scatter, your focus fades, and your purpose weakens. Discipline is how you preserve what's sacred within you. It is the quiet promise you keep to your own soul, even when no one else is watching. When you pray consistently, even on the days your heart feels heavy, that's discipline. When you speak kindly, though your emotions pull you elsewhere, that's discipline. It's not about perfection, it's about devotion. Discipline is love for Allah made visible through repetition. It's choosing consistency over convenience, because you understand that love is not proven by how you feel, but by what you do when it's hardest. Discipline also means saying no to what harms your growth. It's refusing to let distractions dilute your devotion. Every time you turn away from what weakens you, you turn closer to what strengthens your spirit. This isn't punishment, it's protection. The heart that practices discipline guards its peace and directs its passion toward what truly matters. Love without boundaries loses itself, but love guided by discipline becomes pure. There will be days when your emotions don't align with your responsibilities. On those days, discipline becomes your anchor. You don't wait for inspiration to act, you act until inspiration returns. That is love in motion, showing up not because it's easy, but because it's right. It's in those moments of quiet consistency that character is formed and faith deepens. The greatest acts of love are often silent and unseen. In a world that celebrates comfort, discipline feels countercultural. Yet those who understand love know it demands effort. You can't claim to value something and not protect it with your habits, whether it's your faith, your relationships, or your purpose. Love without discipline fades with time. But when love is paired with discipline, it becomes enduring, steady, and resilient. Discipline transforms intention into impact. Many people love deeply, but act inconsistently. The gap between their heart and their habits keeps them from fulfillment. Discipline closes that gap. It makes love visible, tangible, and lasting. It turns promises into proof. Every consistent act, no matter how small, becomes a testimony of your sincerity. It's not about how fast you move, but how faithfully you continue. Every prayer on time, every fast completed, every sacrifice made for something greater. These are all forms of love expressed through discipline. It's not about being perfect, it's about being present. To be disciplined is to say, I love this enough to fight for it. It's how faith sustains itself, how dreams become real, and how the soul learns to walk with purpose instead of impulse. Tomorrow is the most dangerous word in the language of purpose, because it sounds harmless while stealing everything sacred. It gives you the illusion of time, whispering that there will always be another chance, another day, another season to begin. But tomorrow is a liar wrapped in comfort. It doesn't demand urgency, and that's why it's so dangerous. It numbs your drive with hope that feels safe but keeps you still. Every time you say tomorrow, you push purpose one step further away. Procrastination doesn't always look like laziness. Sometimes it looks like patience in disguise. You tell yourself you're waiting for the right moment, the right mindset, or the right sign, but what you're really doing is surrendering to hesitation. Tomorrow becomes the perfect excuse for today's avoidance. It convinces you that waiting is wisdom, but in truth, it's often fear. You don't delay because you don't care. You delay because you're afraid of the cost of obedience, the weight of change, the risk of faith. Every purpose demands urgency because time is not infinite. You were not promised tomorrow, yet you plan your obedience, your growth, and your transformation as if you own it. The reality is that time is a divine trust, not a personal possession. Each second is an invitation, not a guarantee. Every later you speak is a miss now that could have carried your breakthrough. The tragedy of delay is not only what you lose, but what you never get to become. Tomorrow seduces the heart by promising a gentler beginning. It tells you you'll be ready soon, as if readiness will magically arrive without action. But readiness is not a gift of time, it's a result of courage. You don't wait until you're ready to start. You start and then you grow ready. Tomorrow deceives you by making comfort look wise. But the wise act even when it's uncomfortable, because they know the longer you wait, the heavier waiting becomes. Every major regret begins with the word tomorrow. The prayer you postponed, the dream you delayed, the apology you never made, all of them were victims of a day that never came. Life's most painful losses are not from what we tried and failed, but from what we never tried at all. You don't notice the cost immediately. It creeps in slowly through missed chances, fading zeal, and dull faith. The silence of inaction becomes louder than the noise of failure ever could. Purpose thrives in the present because that's where life actually happens. Allah designed the moment of now to be sacred. You don't worship in yesterday and you can't repent in tomorrow. Both belong to Him. What you have is this breath, this second, this choice. When you act now, you honor the gift of time. You tell your Creator, I recognize the weight of this moment. But when you say tomorrow, you treat time as endless and the soul begins to drift. The truth is that tomorrow is not the enemy. It's the test. It asks whether your faith is built on intention or action. Many people dream beautifully but live passively. They speak purpose with passion but practice it with hesitation. Saying I'll do it tomorrow may feel like a small delay, but it's actually a quiet surrender of purpose. It's how conviction dies softly, not from lack of desire, but from lack of decision. Every tomorrow you speak pushes today's purpose into the shadows. The enemy of growth isn't failure, it's postponement. Every time you wait for a better day, you teach your soul that obedience can wait, but faith was never meant to wait, it was meant to walk. The only way to honor purpose is to act in the moment you're given, because that moment is the only guarantee you'll ever have. Fear of failure is rarely about falling short. It's about facing truth. Deep down, what we call fear of failure is often the fear of discovery, the fear of confronting who we truly are when all illusions are stripped away. Success allows us to hide behind results, but failure reveals the state of our hearts. It shows what we depend on, what we believe, and what we fear losing. The real threat isn't the fall, it's the mirror that failure holds up to our identity. We live in a world that glorifies outcomes and hides process. We're taught to measure worth by success, not by sincerity. So, when failure approaches, it doesn't just challenge our plans, It threatens our sense of self. We begin to believe that if we fail, we are a failure. But failure was never meant to define us. It was meant to refine us. It reveals the spaces in our hearts where dependence on Allah should live, but ego still lingers. When you're afraid to fail, you're often afraid to be seen, even by yourself. You fear that your limits will expose your weakness, that your attempts will uncover your inadequacy. But in truth, those limits were placed there by the one who created you, not to humiliate you, but to humble you. You cannot know the strength Allah placed inside you if you never allow yourself to be stretched. You cannot grow if you never step into the unknown. Failure has a divine purpose. It removes the illusion that you are in control. When everything goes according to plan, it's easy to mistake your effort for power. But when plans fall apart, you're reminded of who truly directs outcomes. Failure brings clarity. It teaches reliance. It's not the opposite of success. It's a necessary teacher on the way to it. Without it, faith remains untested, and untested faith cannot mature. The heart that never fails is a heart that never risks obedience. To act in faith means to step where your eyes cannot see, to move when comfort says stay. Fear of failure convinces you that safety is wisdom, but true wisdom is trusting Allah enough to move, even if it leads through uncertainty. It's realizing that you were never called to guarantee results, only to give sincere effort. The outcome belongs to Him, but the obedience belongs to you. Every failure you fear is an opportunity to discover who you truly serve. Your ego or your purpose, when the applause stops, when success hides, what remains is the truth of your intention. That's why failure hurts. It removes the masks. But once you stop fearing that exposure, you begin to live freely. You stop performing for approval and start acting out of conviction. You begin to see failure not as rejection, but as redirection. Faith transforms failure into revelation. When you fall but still turn to Allah, when you lose but still trust His wisdom, you meet parts of your soul that comfort could never reveal. Failure teaches surrender, and surrender teaches peace. The more you fail and rise again, the more resilient your faith becomes. You realize that what you feared all along wasn't failure itself. It was transformation, the kind that strips away false identity and builds something eternal in its place. So fear of failure is not weakness. It's a signal. It's the soul trembling before growth. It's a sacred moment where you choose whether to protect your pride or pursue your purpose. Once you understand that failure is not the end, but a mirror of divine mercy, you stop running from it. You start walking through it. And in doing so, you finally discover who you really are. Small consistency is the quiet architect of greatness. It doesn't demand applause or recognition. It builds patiently, one act at a time. Big dreams capture attention, but small habits sustain them. Intention alone inspires, but without consistency, it fades into wishful thinking. Every great impact the world has ever seen was not built in a single leap, but through countless, ordinary steps repeated with faith. The bridge between intention and impact is not speed or talent, it's small, unwavering consistency. We often underestimate the power of small beginnings because they don't feel significant. Praying 2 extra minutes, reading 1 verse, giving 1 act of kindness, these moments seem too small to matter. But small doesn't mean weak. Small means sustainable. The Prophet said that Allah loves the deeds done consistently. Even if they are small, that is divine wisdom. Because consistency builds depth, and depth builds transformation. What starts as little becomes lasting when done with sincerity. Consistency transforms your inner world long before it changes your outer one. When you repeat small acts of faith, discipline, or kindness, you begin to rewire your heart. You teach your soul that commitment matters more than convenience. Over time, what once felt like effort becomes part of your nature. Small consistency shapes character in ways sudden change never can. It molds you gently but powerfully, aligning your habits with your higher purpose. Many people live trapped between intention and impact. They dream greatly, but act sporadically. They start with passion, then fade when results take too long, but impact doesn't come from intensity, it comes from endurance. Passion sparks the flame, but consistency keeps it burning. When you commit to small, steady action, you move closer to purpose without even realizing it. Each quiet repetition becomes a step toward becoming who you're meant to be. The secret of consistency is sincerity. When you act from love and not from pride, you can sustain your effort even when no one is watching. Those who seek results burn out quickly, but those who seek meaning persist. Every small, unseen act, every prayer whispered in private, every temptation resisted, every good habit kept alive becomes a thread that weaves faith into the fabric of your daily life. Over time, those threads form strength. No storm can tear apart. Consistency doesn't require perfection, it requires presence. Missing a day doesn't mean you failed. It means you're human. What matters is returning. When you fall, you rise again. When you forget, you remember again. That return, that decision to keep going despite weakness is what builds spiritual momentum. Small consistency turns ordinary persistence into extraordinary resilience. It's not about never breaking, it's about never staying broken. Every great act of faith starts small. A single prayer that grows into devotion, a single effort that evolves into discipline. We often chase dramatic breakthroughs, but Allah works through steady process. Growth built in silence lasts longer than success built in noise. The tree that grows slowly grows stronger roots. Small, consistent action anchors you in purpose while the world around you changes with every wind. So, when you feel your progress is too slow, remember that you are building something invisible before it becomes visible. Every small act done sincerely is constructing a bridge between who you are and who you're becoming. Intention begins the journey, but consistency completes it. What feels ordinary today may one day be the foundation of something extraordinary, because small consistency is how divine impact takes shape through human effort. Regret is not born in a single moment. It echoes from time we once held but never used. It is the sound of opportunities neglected, of prayers delayed, of purpose postponed. Time is a sacred trust, yet we treat it as if it were endless. Every second we waste doesn't just disappear. It leaves behind a shadow that lingers in the heart. That shadow is regret, the echo of choices we never made, the reflection of potential we let slip away. The pain of regret is sharper than the pain of failure, because failure gives experience, but regret gives nothing. You can recover from a mistake, but you can't recover the time that passed before it. Regret whispers, you could have been more, you could have done more. It doesn't come to punish, but to awaken. It's the soul's reminder that time is not a resource to be spent carelessly. It's a trust to be invested wisely, moment by moment. Every time we choose comfort over conviction, we make a small deposit into the bank of regret. It feels harmless at first. One missed opportunity, one delayed goal, one postponed prayer. But over time, those moments accumulate into silence. That silence is heavy because it carries all the things that could have been. Regret is never loud in the beginning. It grows louder when we realize how quietly we traded eternal gain for temporary ease. Regret doesn't just live in the past. It shapes the present. When left unhealed, it becomes a weight that slows every new beginning. It convinces you that since you've wasted time before, you're unworthy of starting again. But regret's true purpose isn't to imprison you. It's to point you back toward redemption. It's not there to remind you of your failure. It's there to remind you of the value of every breath that still remains. Every person will face regret in some form, but not everyone learns from it. The wise use regret as a teacher. The unaware use it as a reason to stop trying. When you look back and feel the ache of lost time, you are being invited to live differently now. You can't change yesterday, but you can change what tomorrow will remember about today. Regret can become a mirror that reveals the cost of delay and the beauty of renewal. The deepest form of regret comes not from what we did, but from what we left undone. The words unspoken, the kindness withheld, the prayers postponed. It is the quiet realization that time offered us chances to grow closer to Allah, to love better, to serve deeper, and we looked away. Yet even in that pain, lies mercy, because regret is proof that your heart still feels, that your conscience still breathes, that your soul still longs to make things right. Time is not an enemy, but it is honest. It gives without favoritism, but it doesn't return what's lost. You can't negotiate with time, but you can redeem it through presence. Every moment lived with awareness becomes a moment reclaimed. Every act of sincerity becomes a small victory over regret. The key is not to dwell on what's gone, but to make what's left count so deeply that the echo of the past begins to fade. Regret echoes only where meaning is absent. When you fill your time with purpose, the echo begins to quiet. The pain that once reminded you of loss becomes a push toward discipline, prayer, and gratitude. Regret teaches urgency, that time is not to be watched, but to be worshipped through action. You can't erase the echo, but you can transform it into rhythm. The rhythm of a life that finally understands the value of every fleeting second. Fear often thrives in stillness, in the moments when thought outruns action, when imagination builds mountains that reality never intended. It feeds on hesitation, on the pause between knowing and doing. Action, however, breaks that cycle. When you move, even if imperfectly, fear begins to lose its grip. Action doesn't always remove uncertainty, but it reminds you that faith was never meant to be felt first. It was meant to be practiced step by trembling step. Faith is not the absence of fear, but the courage to move while it still whispers. When you act in faith, you are not declaring that you have no fear. You are declaring that something greater than fear deserves your obedience. The moment you take that first step toward what you believe, you shift the balance of power. Fear speaks loudest in the waiting, but faith speaks loudest in motion. It is in movement that belief becomes visible and trust becomes tangible. Action clarifies what fear distorts. When we act, we discover that many of our fears were exaggerated illusions, stories the mind told to protect us from discomfort. Action confronts those stories with reality, and in doing so reveals that most fears are conquerable. Each small act of faith dismantles the lies of fear brick by brick. Over time, the unknown becomes familiar, and what once seemed impossible becomes simply the next step forward. The prophets did not wait for fear to disappear before they acted. They moved despite trembling hearts and uncertain outcomes. Their movement was their declaration of trust. True faith is forged not in comfort, but in obedience amid the storm. When you act from conviction, you are saying to fear, "You may walk beside me, but you will not lead me." That posture of trust transforms the landscape of your inner world. Where fear once dictated direction, faith begins to drive it. Fear thrives on what ifs. Faith thrives on what is. The difference lies in action. Fear imagines, faith experiences. Fear paralyzes with possibilities, but faith engages with purpose. Every time you choose to act on what you know to be right, you silence one more doubt and you strengthen one more muscle of belief. Over time, the habit of action becomes a habit of faith, a rhythm where trust flows more easily because motion has trained your soul to lean forward instead of back. Action invites divine partnership. When you act with sincere intention, you meet the unseen help of God in ways that stillness cannot offer. Allah opens doors for those who walk, not those who merely wish. Each act of courage, however small, becomes a prayer in motion, a sign that you are willing to participate in the miracle you are asking for. Faith without action is theory, but action fueled by faith becomes transformation. Every time you choose action over hesitation, you build evidence for your own belief. You begin to see that fear cannot coexist with progress. One must give way to the other. Each small victory makes the next step easier, until courage becomes less about effort and more about habit. You realize that fear loses authority not when you defeat it in your mind, but when you move through it with conviction. Faith matures through movement. It grows stronger, not in quiet certainty, but in the chaos of choice. In the moments when you act, even though everything in you wants to wait, action becomes the language through which your soul learns trust. The more you act, the more you understand that faith is not an emotion to feel, but a discipline to live. A daily decision to walk toward light even when shadows follow close behind. Purpose is not something you stumble upon one morning. It's something you uncover through consistent living. Many people wait for a grand revelation, a perfect sign, or a life-changing moment to define why they exist. But purpose rarely shouts. It whispers in the rhythm of daily choices. It grows out of showing up again and again in faith, service, and integrity. It is not found in the extraordinary, but formed through the ordinary moments that we choose to live with intention. The illusion that purpose is hidden somewhere out there keeps many people stuck. They wait for clarity before they move, not realizing that clarity is born from movement. Every act of kindness, every moment of effort, every prayer whispered in silence contributes to shaping a deeper understanding of why you're here. Purpose unfolds as you walk, not before it is revealed to the doer, not the dreamer. Each step you take in sincerity becomes a thread in the tapestry of divine design. Purpose thrives in alignment, not ambition. It's not about doing everything, but about doing the right things for the right reasons. When your actions reflect your values, your daily life begins to mirror your deeper calling. It's in the quiet consistency of choosing truth over ease, compassion over pride, and faith over fear that your purpose begins to take shape. The more you align your life with what matters eternally, the clearer your path becomes. Living your purpose means treating every moment as sacred. It's not only about the career you build or the recognition you gain, but about the character you form and the lives you touch. Even the smallest act of sincerity, listening, helping, forgiving, carries eternal weight when done with pure intention. Purpose is not measured by scale, but by significance. And significance is often invisible to the world, but deeply seen by God. Purpose is less about arrival and more about becoming. It's not a destination you reach, but a direction you follow. Every day becomes an opportunity to grow into the person your purpose requires. You may not always feel certain, but you can always choose to be faithful. When you approach life this way, even your struggles become part of your service, shaping you into someone capable of carrying greater meaning with humility. Those who live with purpose understand that fulfillment is not found in the future, but in the now. They don't wait for perfect conditions to begin living meaningfully. They create meaning where they stand. Purpose doesn't bloom in the absence of challenges. It matures through them. Every hardship becomes an invitation to live out your beliefs with depth and authenticity. Purpose is not discovered in success, but in the courage to live truthfully in every circumstance. You can't pray for purpose and then live passively. Purpose answers movement, not apathy. Each morning is a new invitation to embody what you say you believe. To live purposefully is to treat time as a trust, to invest every moment in something that outlives you. It's not about waiting for a perfect opportunity. It's about making every opportunity meaningful. Purpose is less about finding your role in the world and more about reflecting God's will through your role. When you live your purpose daily, you stop searching and start serving. You stop asking, what am I meant to do? And start asking, how can I bring meaning to what I do? That shift transforms ordinary work into worship and daily life into devotion. The search for purpose ends not when you find the answer, but when you become the answer. When your life itself becomes a message of faith, consistency, and surrender. Time is the most sacred currency of existence. Every second spent is a piece of your life you will never regain. It's not just a measure of minutes or hours, it's the material of your soul's journey. When you waste time, you are not merely losing productivity, you are surrendering fragments of the life entrusted to you by God. To protect your time is to honor the divine breath that sustains you, because every moment carries potential for worship, growth, and impact. The way you treat your time reveals what you truly value. You can't say you value purpose, but spend your hours in distraction, or say you value growth, yet live in constant delay. Time is the silent witness to your priorities. It exposes what matters most through how you spend it. Protecting your time means drawing boundaries around what drains your soul and investing deeply in what nourishes it. It is spiritual stewardship, not just time management. Your time is not infinite, and that's what makes it precious. Death is not meant to create fear, but urgency. a reminder that this life is not rehearsal, but the real performance. Every breath is a countdown toward your final return, and each day is a page written in your eternal record. When you waste time, you waste the chance to fulfill what you were uniquely created to do. To live consciously is to treat time as the sacred trust. It truly is. Many people guard their money but are careless with their minutes. Yet time is more valuable than wealth, because money can return, but time never will. You can rebuild fortunes, repair relationships, and restart dreams, but you can never relive yesterday. When you understand that truth deeply, you begin to protect your hours with reverence. You stop giving your time to what doesn't serve your purpose, and you start offering it only to what draws you closer to God and meaning. Every distraction has a cost, and that cost is always time. The endless scrolling, the unguarded conversations, the commitments made out of guilt, they all steal from the finite balance of your life. Protecting your time doesn't mean becoming rigid. It means becoming intentional. It means asking before every yes, is this worthy of my life's currency? It means recognizing that saying yes to one thing always means saying no to another, and choosing wisely what deserves your energy. Time is not just passing, it is shaping you. What you do daily becomes who you are. How you use your time becomes the story your soul tells. Protecting your time means protecting your identity, your peace, and your legacy. It means reserving quiet moments for reflection, protecting your mornings for prayer, and valuing stillness as much as productivity. Your time is where your faith is lived, not just spoken, and where your priorities take form in action. When you guard your time, you are not being selfish, you are being faithful. God has given you this limited span not to waste in anxiety or comparison, but to fulfill your portion of his plan. Every soul has a mission, and every mission requires focus. Protecting your time is protecting your divine assignment. It's saying to the world, my purpose is too sacred to be interrupted by what doesn't matter. It's a declaration of discipline, clarity, and devotion. Your time and your soul are intertwined. One fades as the other rises or falls. When your time is filled with meaning, your soul expands. When it's filled with emptiness, your spirit shrinks. To protect your time is to guard the essence of who you are, to ensure that when your final hour arrives, you can say you lived fully, intentionally, and in alignment with what mattered most. Time is not just life passing by, it is life unfolding, and how you protect it defines who you become.